The inheritance lie won the family estate. Nestled deep in the sprawling countryside with its ivy-covered walls and looming halls, had long stood as a symbol of power, wealth, and the weight of tradition. The Hawthorne legacy was one whispered about in high society and resented by those who knew its darker corners. At the center of it all was William Hawthorne, the aging patriarch, a man who built an empire, but also buried decades of secrets within the very walls of his ancestral home. On the eve of his passing, as snow began to gently fall over the quiet grounds, William summoned his lawyer and demanded a change. A new will was drawn. Against everyone's assumptions and long-standing expectations, he left the entire estate, millions in assets, land, stocks, and the house itself, to Emily, soft-spoken and unassuming granddaughter. This decision sent shockwaves through the family. Whispers turned into outright accusations. Why, Emily? Why not Jake, the golden boy of the family? Why not any of the others who had worked their entire lives to stay in the patriarch's good graces? Emily was as surprised as everyone else. She hadn't spoken to her grandfather alone in years, let alone imagined being named his sole heir. But in the aftermath of the reading of the will, the house became a battlefield. Jake, infuriated and humiliated, refused to accept the will's authenticity. He hired private investigators, consulted handwriting experts, and began interrogating family members. His mother, Vivian Williams' daughter, and once the apple of his eye, was even more furious. To her, the inheritance was not just money or property, it was legacy. Something she had believed she was destined to pass on to Jake. Her fury drove her to uncover and expose anything she could to discredit Emily. But the house held more than just legal documents and ancestral artifacts. It held echoes, whispers from behind closed doors, locked drawers and antique desks, hidden letters and old books. And it was during one of these tense days, mere hours after the will had been read, that a stranger arrived. Her name was Rachel. She stood in the entryway in a worn coat, holding a faded photograph and a birth certificate. The family froze. Rachel claimed to be William's daughter, child from an affair no one had ever known about. One that occurred decades ago while William was still married to his now-deceased wife, Eleanor. She brought evidence, and with it, a sharp tongue and an unsettling knowledge of every skeleton in the family's closet. She revealed secrets casually, with the calm of someone who had waited a long time for revenge. She knew about the embezzlement Jake had covered up in college. She knew about Vivian's affair with her late husband's business partner. She even knew about William's first will, one that had left the estate to Jake's, that mysteriously vanished only weeks before William's death. But her most devastating revelation came quietly. In the dim kitchen, lit only by the soft hum of the refrigerator light, Emily walked in on a tense conversation between Rachel and Lily, her aunt. Only it wasn't just a conversation, it was a confession. Lily wasn't Emily's aunt. She was her biological mother. Emily listened in silence as Lily admitted to a secret romance with Rachel's brother, a man who had disappeared before Emily was born. She had been forced by William to keep the truth hidden, to protect the family's image. Emily was never meant to know. Her entire identity was built on a lie. The knowledge crushed Emily. The inheritance now felt like a curse. She had not only inherited money, but the full weight of a fractured legacy built on betrayal, manipulation, and lies. She began to question her place in the family and whether she truly wanted to stay in a house soaked in so much sorrow. Meanwhile, Rachel began uncovering old journal entries, financial statements, and a letter written by William in his final days, a letter addressed to Emily. In it, William apologized for the pain she would endure and for the truth she would have to confront. He explained that he chose her because she was the only one he trusted to fix what he had broken, but not everyone wanted it fixed. Jake launched a formal legal challenge, and Vivian enlisted the help of distant cousins and old friends to slander Emily's name. The house turned into a war zone, an emotional battlefield where every conversation could spiral into screaming matches, where every family dinner turned into a cross-examination. Rachel, while originally a wild card, became an unlikely ally to Emily. The two of them began to bond, piecing together the deeper story of William's choices, and discovering the long thread of betrayal that ran back to generations. They learned of Eleanor's sacrifice, of a love triangle buried in secrecy, and of a family fortune that was never as clean as it appeared. As more truth surfaced, so did questions about the legitimacy of every relationship in the house. Who could be trusted? What was real? What was constructed for the sake of appearances?
Us.
The story of the Hawthorns was indeed just about one inheritance. It was about decades of people choosing silence over truth,
At.
pride over reconciliation, and image over love. Emily stood at the center of it, now burdened with deciding the family's future. Would she sell the estate? Would she divide the inheritance and walk away? Or would she try to heal a family that had spent generations tearing itself apart from within? The final decision wasn't just about money. It was about identity, legacy, and finally choosing truth, no matter how ugly it might be. All because of one lie, one choice, one inheritance. In a family that was never as whole as it pretended to be.